So at this point, I will call Ruth forward to give us an update from the county. I will at this time say that Luke Preston was coming from Muskoka. Actually, he lives in Sundridge and he got about 10 minutes down the road and had to turn around due to ice storms happening up there. So Ruth is going to give us an update from Simcoe County. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you all. Um, as mentioned, I'm Ruth Walker Scott. I'm a Senior Economic Development Officer with the County of Simcoe. The work that I do focuses predominantly on workforce development initiatives. Um, as Sherry mentioned, I did think I was going to be sharing the floor today with Luke, so I put together a very short overview of just some of the work that we do and a few updates. So um, it's a quick presentation. So okay, excellent. So without further ado, I'll get into it then. So we always like to start our presentations with just a quick overview of what the Economic Development Office does. So ultimately, for I'm sure that most of you have heard this spiel before, but very much our purpose here is really to essentially work as a bridge and to make sure that we are creating great connections with our partners across the region, so the 16 member municipalities, the separated cities of Barrie and Orillia, service providers, as well as industry too. And so we really just work to foster and build capacity for a regional approach to economic development. The work that we do is very much guided by our strategic plan, our economic development strategy. It is up for renew this year. We're actually going to be working with a consultant fairly soon, like many partners across the region. So we're going to be developing a new strategy later in the year. However, I assume and expect that many of the goals that guide our work will still be present. So very much that we really strive to be recognized as a leader for Simcoe County to be recognized as a premier destination for investment. And we also really promote quality of life here. So we work very closely with our tourism department and again, other partners across the region to really promote the quality of life, the quality of education, and careers that are available here in Simcoe County. And we work to ensure that businesses stay and grow here. So business retention and expansion is very much a key piece of the work that we do. And as I mentioned, we really do work to facilitate and build strong working relationships to and collaborate with our partners. And we also work with internal and external departments as well too to advocate for the support of infrastructure that really aids in the delivery of everyone's projects. The labor market research study was developed in late 2022, and this is another document that really guides the work that we do, especially for me in workforce development. It was put together very much as a result of our collaboration with SM Skillforce. So we leveraged the annual employer survey that SM Skillforce issues, added a few extra questions, and I think there were some gift prizes, some gift baskets that were offered to for people who answered. And with the result of the information that we gathered, I put together the labor market research study. It's a really great resource. If you haven't had a look at it, I would encourage you to check out the website that's linked here in these slides, and I'm happy to share the slides after. It provides recommendations across our 6 key sectors. It provides sort of an overview of recommendations for all sectors, but then also identifies those that are specific to each individual sector as well. Very much what we heard and continue to see is that soft skills are very much a challenge, not just for new employees coming into the workforce, but also for those that are in place. And a lack of soft skills and so those professional skills, communication, management, interpersonal skills. Can be a real hindrance to people's ability to enter, but also then to progress through in their current role and into advanced roles as well too. The Work in Simcoe County job site also, so, and that's actually where you can find the labor market research study, is linked on our site. Actually, that's probably not true. It's on our EDO site. However, the Work in Simcoe County site is a really great tool for resources as well. It is a job board. So what it does is it aggregates job postings from over 30 different sites. So essentially, if an employer posts on Indeed or the job bank or where have you, over 30 different sites, it will end up on the Work in Simcoe County job board. We often do hear from some people like, how do I get my job posted on this site? Just post it anywhere and it will ultimately be aggregated onto this job board. But in addition to the job board, it also has the ability to provide really great in job demand reports and skill demand reports as well too. Sorry, here we go. So I've just clipped a few. These are from the February 2026 job demand report. And I've actually printed a couple here, so I will keep these out in case anybody wants to have a look. It's really useful. I go to it regularly. When you access the site as an external party, you can generate monthly reports. So all the way back to when the site was launched, which was April 2020. So you can go in and really look at that historic data and see things like top employers, the skill sets that those employers are looking for, what occupations are growing, which occupations are shrinking. It's really, really useful. When you generate a report, it comes out with 47 pages of fantastic information. But if you wanted a bigger scope, I also have the ability to generate those reports. I could look right from April to today, essentially. So compile those reports looking at that historic data. Often what we do is sort of generate one for last year and compare it to this year. So if anybody has that interest, then please feel free to reach out to me. But as you can see, so in February, you can see things like the site had over, it had 5,777 active job posts. 3,587 of those were new. The average posting each day, the average day or length of time that each posting was posted was 18.6 days, a reduction of 11%. And then there was over 2,200 companies that actually appear on that job site posting their opportunities. I do like to provide the caveat though, when I talk about this site, it has incredible data, but you could really read that information in different ways. So to see that, for example, that there are new job postings is down by 7% from the previous year. You could say that there are less jobs available, but there's also other ways of looking at that, like that you would want to look at other sources as well too. So it's not necessarily seeing that numbers are going down or going up as negative or bad. You want to look at it as a whole in conjunction with some other resources that we have. Again, I don't want to get into it too much, but the county's economic development office also has access to other data sources like CoStar, Lightcast, so we can actually do some comparative analysis as well. So, you see that companies hiring has gone up by 12%. Again, that could be as a result of new businesses opening. It could be as a result of expansion. This site doesn't necessarily give us that information, but looking at a whole of a suite of information, we can usually get a better sense of those bigger stories. I also mentioned too previously that it also has a skills demand report, which isn't shown here, but it will also, so using the data from those different job postings, we'll look at the skills that employers are looking for, communications, management, what have you, and it will really sort of prioritize those, give you the dominance of their presentation, which I find really useful, especially when we are talking to students or job seekers. We do see a tendency of some people maybe having some hesitancy of getting into certain careers or taking certain job postings because it's not necessarily where they want to be. They have a hard time sort of seeing what that pathway or that trajectory is. So when you look at the skill demands, it really does help to demonstrate that there are transferable skills from your entry level positions to your management and director positions, executive roles. So it really helps to really paint that picture that entering into one role that may not be your absolute ideal and where you want to go is helping to create that pathway and move you forward. Oh, sorry, skipped this one. So, and to that point, with the Economic Development Office has been running a Pathways to Work in Simcoe County campaign. This very much is around that messaging. Again, where we hear from youth, we hear from some job seekers that there is a hesitancy to take certain positions because it's not where they want to be. This campaign really is trying to encourage people to be daring and bold in their job search, to understand that transferable skills are really key, and that when you enter into one role, not only are you building those skills, but you're also building your networks as well too. So we're running these ads on Spotify and some different paid social ads as well too, and it drives to the Work in Simcoe County site, where we then have a landing page that then drives traffic outwards. We're developing some blogs as well, where, for example, we've looked at a few. There's a faculty member from Georgian who speaks about their career. They're now working as an electrician. They weren't always working as an electrician. So it sort of tells that story of how they went from point A to B or D. And then it also provides then links out to different resources, to Georgian, to Lakehead, to different employer services as well too. So really to just trying to close that loop and to help people understand the opportunities that are available to them in Simcoe County. Additionally, to the information that you can find on the Work in Simcoe County site, the EDO, edo.simcoe.ca, has a really great statistics dashboard. Again, this is utilizing, or it's developed by utilizing the many different data sources that we do have access to. So I would definitely recommend you to check that out. Again, if you're working with job seekers or people that are thinking about relocating, or they want to have a better sense of opportunities that are available to them in specific communities, this allows you to choose the different municipalities. You can compare them one to the other. It gets down into details like commute times, housing availability, and various factors like that. So it really helps to paint a picture and help people understand the communities and the areas that they could move into. We also regularly update our funding page that's available on the EDO site. So definitely encourage you to go and visit that. I just shared an email earlier, which I'm sure yesterday with Sherry. We try to stay on top of funding opportunities. So when things come out, like the announcement just yesterday for training providers, then we do our best to make sure that that information is updated. It provides federal, provincial, and regional opportunities on there as well too. And for those of you, you may have noticed last week, we had a really exciting announcement out at the county building, announcing the launch of the RTDS, the Regional Technology Development Site. The county has worked in partnership with OVIN, the Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network, as Sherry had mentioned earlier, as well as the cities, Lakehead, Georgian, the Sandbox in Barrie, which is the RIC for the region, the Regional Innovation Center, as well as Oro Station and Honda. This is a really exciting opportunity because it brings all of these partners together as an ability to really drive the future of automotive and mobility innovation in the area, leveraging all of those partners so that any business, anybody who's interested and has an idea really that they want to test, that they want to develop, will be able to leverage that state of the art infrastructure and commercialization support as well too through our business support networks to really enhance their product development. So it's a pretty exciting time. Do also just want to highlight some upcoming events and opportunities. Sherry had mentioned, so it is technically later in the year now from when Sherry mentioned it. The Skilled Trades Fair, so Simcoe County Skilled Trades Fair, is going to be taking place on April 23rd at Georgian's Midland campus. We are very excited this year. As Sherry mentioned, in previous years, we've targeted, in working with the school boards, targeted elementary students during the day. This year, we've taken a bit of a different approach, and we're targeting high school students that have indicated that they are interested in learning more about careers in the skilled trades. So we'll be having grade 9 to 12 students out between 9 and 1:30 during the day. And then from 3 until 7, it opens up to the public. We're looking forward to having service providers. There will be a job fair, an apprenticeship fair too, so information about getting into apprenticeships. And as I said, employers that do have vacancies will be able to utilize the space as a job fair as well too. And we're also going to be having some panel discussions. Matt's going to be hosting a live podcast there, which we're pretty excited about, to asking the experts of how to get into the skilled trades. And then we'll also be hearing from some employers as well as people who found success working in the trades too. So it's going to be a whole complete day really to be able to learn about those opportunities. So we're looking forward to it. And as I said, it's open to the public from 3 until 7. We're also working with SM Skillforce to pull details together for this year's Workforce Connect conference. It will be taking place sometime in mid-June. Also in North Simcoe, we're excited to be partnering with some municipalities in Muskoka as well too. It's a really great opportunity for people, we say HR executives and business leaders, but service providers certainly too, not-for-profits, to really understand trends in the workforce. We're going to have a really great keynote delivered by Deloitte, who will be talking about economic trends as well as how to build resilience in the workforce. So that's actually the theme. I should have led with that, is building resilience. So we're excited for that one in mid-June. We'll be sharing more details coming out. And then also we do have some employer training taking place as well too. So this one that I've shown on the screen is emotional intelligence. We found that lunch and learns are a really great model. And while there's a lot of interest in being able to attend training sessions when we offer half day or full day experiences, people want to be there, but it's hard to get away. So we're finding that lunch and learn models are really beneficial. So this one's going to be held, Lakehead is leading it, held from 12 until 1:30 on building emotional intelligence in the workplace. And then we also have, as much as I've just said that about the half days, we also do still continue to hold some half day and more extended opportunities. So there are different events that are coming up. Just encourage you to visit this website, edo.simcoe.ca. I missed the .ca/events, and you can find the whole list. It's not just our events, we also include our partners on there too. So it's a really great opportunity to learn what's happening in the region. I also wanted to flag too, back to the Work in Simcoe County site, that we do also have a job fair event page. So, and a number of you have been reaching out, which is fantastic. If you're hosting a job fair, if you have training or events that you want to be able to showcase for job seekers, please reach out to me. We're happy to post those on that site as well too. That is us, or some of our initiatives in a nutshell. I'm sorry that it was kind of brief and a little disjointed, but if you have any questions, if you would like to dig into the Work in Simcoe County job demand reports a bit more, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to walk you through any of those resources and talk about our events. That's it. Thank you so much.
So, good morning, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here. As I was saying, I do not have a fancy PowerPoint like Ruth, so I'm just going to read off some of my notes here. So I'm happy to share some of the updates and some of the initiatives that we have going on. But before I start, I'm just not sure if everybody knows me. So my name is Tamim Hamidi, and I'm the Community Outreach Manager with Serco, and we are the Service System Manager for the KWB region. So we work very closely with our service providers to deliver employment services. So the first update I wanted to share is that Circle has partnered with LaYuna Local 183 Training Center to provide training and certification related to construction for our Employ Next job seekers with related employment goals. This training opportunity is meant to support those who are interested in the construction field but lack specific training that are required for entry-level employment within the sector. So this is an 8-day full day training. This focuses on working at heights, Ontario Health and Safety, PPE, prepare propane hoisting, traffic control, WMS, small tools, uh, ground disturbance, and scaffolding. So we had two cohorts so far. The first one just completed in Barrie, and we had 8 successful completions. And we had actually one of our service provider attend the graduation ceremony. The second cohort just recently completed in Cambridge. So we had 6 participants complete there. So we're looking forward to this partnership, and I think it's a very good opportunity for youths, especially 15 to 29, who are looking to get into construction. So it's a very good opportunity for them. The second thing I want to share is that I'm sure most of you are aware. I sent the flyer to Sherry as well. There's a job fair today, actually. Georgian College will be hosting it at South Shore Community Center. So I'm sure most of you probably know about it. It's 2 to 6. So please share accordingly. I have two updates I want to share in regards to Georgian College. So, Holly, if I miss anything, please do feel free to jump in. So, the Career and Employment Services Barrie location is moving on April 1st. So, effective April 1st, all career and employment community service located at 48 Calder Street, Barrie, will move to Georgian College Barrie campus located at 1 Georgian Drive, Building B, Room 105. This includes the Integrated Employment Services, Newcomer Employment Services, and Youth Employment Services. So the relocation is intended to improve collaboration with local partners and increase accessibility for employers and job seekers. Itinerant services will continue several times a week at the Ontario Works office at 136 Bayfield Street, 4th floor, with increased presence in downtown Barrie. This will not cause any interruption to the services, and contact information will remain the same. So communications will be sent out to clients and partners to inform them of the change of location. Additionally, Georgian College Aurelia Integrated Employment Services is moving on April 1st as well. As Georgian College consolidates the Aurelia campus with the Barrie campus, Integrated Employment Services in Aurelia, funded by EmployNext, will relocate on April 1st to 250 West Street, North Aurelia, within the Social and Community Services Office, which is managed by County of Simcoe. Did I miss anything? Okay. All right, I wrote it down, so just make sure don't miss it. Okay, so community partner portal. So last year I did a presentation on the portal, and I did mention that we're going to have some enhancements from the portal. For those of you who don't know, this is a portal that we have that it's for our community partners to refer clients to the service providers. And recently we had, yeah, you're very excited, right? So recently we had some enhancements. So now when you make a referral, you will get the service provider's email in terms of who has received the referral, and they will follow up with you. Or if you don't hear back within 2 or 3 business days, you can follow up with that person. And then the other enhancements we have is that our service providers can make a referral through our ES cases to the service to the community partners. I'm happy to do another presentation because this will take a lot of time to go into details. But I know last year I did a presentation, so I'm not sure if you guys are planning to have another session. But if you do, I would be happy to come. And I think last year I did a demo too. So happy to provide that. Or if you guys are interested, we could talk offline and I can give you some more information. But just wanted to let you know that we're continuously working on this platform and we're going to be enhancing it more as we go down. Uh, then we have our service provider advisory table. This is geared towards our service providers within our KWB region. So basically what we do is on a quarterly basis, we get together and we talk about best practices and how we can support the job seekers, employers, and partners. So that's something also coming up. Our service providers here are very well aware of that. And then the last thing I want to mention is that Employ Next will be launching a community partner forum. within the next couple of months. So basically, this community partner forum will focus on bringing together community partners to discuss best practices and how we can work together. Most of the advisory tables and youth working tables that we have are very geared towards a specific type group. So, for example, we have the youth focused working group, which is geared towards youth. We have the employer advisory table, which is geared towards employer. But we wanted to create something where we have LBS, employers, community partners, all in one call, and so we can discuss how we can work together and support. Yeah, thank you. So that is it for myself. Just wanted to provide these updates. So thank you so much for your time.
Okay, so there's a number of things I want to cover today. Firstly, I want to get the slides to move. It's weird. Thank you. Okay. Okay, we're good. Thank you. All right, so we're going to be doing presenting a lot of data, but also particularly in relation to labor market information, but also some data on the Employment Ontario client numbers. But there's going to be another presentation afterwards focusing on literacy. There was also some consultations that were held with employers. So just do some highlights of those and then kind of recap this what we found. So we'll start with the basic stuff, the unemployment. So this is, first of all, annual data. I don't want to get into too much in the monthly data because there's a lot of, when you have a survey, a labor force survey, you're dealing with samples that are smaller size, and it can be a lot of variation. I think the big picture becomes much clearer when we look at what's happening on an annual basis. So this slide, I'm showing 4 different geographies. I'm going to start with the Toronto Census Metropolitan Area. So that's essentially what we consider like the Greater Toronto Area. And then I take those numbers and subtract them from the Ontario numbers, because what happens in Toronto is often pretty different from what happens in the rest of Ontario. So we have the rest of Ontario figure. And then for Muskoka, we can use the economic region data, which is Muskoka and the Kawarthas. And then for Simcoe, as a surrogate, I'm using the Barrie Census Metropolitan Area. When you look at this figure, this chart, you can see like the trends are relatively similar. They go up and down more or less in tandem, but the differences are show up. Primarily, number one, the unemployment rate in the Toronto area is typically higher than elsewhere. The unemployment rate in Muskoka and the surrounding area is typically lower, and I'm going to get into that in a moment, why that might be. But by and large, they follow the same pattern. In 2020, of course, with COVID, the unemployment rate really increased, but then declined relatively quickly. But since around 2023, the unemployment rate, as we all know, has been increasing, and the trajectory, the kind of trend line is not looking good if we're looking into what's going to happen next. When we're dealing with smaller geographies, Statistics Canada likes to present the data over a 3-month average because the geographies are smaller, so the sample gets less reliable. So here I'm just showing that rest of Ontario figure, the orange line, the Barrie figure, the blue line, and Muskoka Kawartha is the green line. If we look at the rest of Ontario figure, again, you can see from January 2024 to January 2026, there's kind of a slow, steady increase in the unemployment rate. Areas look like they're really jumping up and down. It's not necessarily because that the economy has been gyrating so considerably. It's because, again, the smaller sample size will sometimes just cause more extreme variations in the figures. But the overall trend line is also increasing. If we drew a trend line for the blue figures for Barrie or for the green figures for Muskoka, you'd see it's slowly been increasing. Okay, so again, that troublesome trend. We've talked about, we hear a lot more about unemployment among youth. And so I wanted to separate out the figures for youth. And for this, we're talking about 15 to 24-year-olds, and then comparing it not to the general unemployment rate, but to people who are 25 years and older. So again, I want to put this in context. So I'm going back to 1990 with these figures. And you can see the blue line is the youth unemployment, always significantly higher than the adult rate. And it spikes at moments typically when we're having a recession. So we had a recession in the early 1990s. So you could see how much higher the youth unemployment rate was. We had another recession in 2008. And then we had COVID in 2020. And then the youth unemployment rate really increased right up to 22%. But what's troublesome is that we're not officially in a recession yet. And yet in 2025, the youth unemployment rate was at 16%. So something pretty significant happening. The adult unemployment rate, has been increasing in the last couple of years, but it's still not nearly close to where it was during those spikes, during those recessions. But another way to look at it is the ratio between the youth unemployment rate and the adult rate. So looking over that same period, I've created this chart, and it's essentially the comparison between the youth unemployment rate and the adult unemployment rate. So up until around the year 2000, the youth unemployment rate was around 2 times that of adults. And then it really increased and started hovering, being at around 2.5 times the adult rate. It goes up and down, right? But I think one of the reasons why we've been talking about youth unemployment more in the last couple of years is that that rate has now been hitting 2.7 times the adult rate. So I've drawn that dotted line. It's a couple of times in the last 4 or 5 years. And you can also see kind of, again, the trend line in the last 10 years, it's going upward. Now, it went down in 2025, but I don't, there's always going to be variations, but the long-term trend line is, again, does not look good for youth. Partly more recently, we've been seeing more uncertainty, and so employers are holding off hiring, and the people who are hurt the most are those who are coming into the labor market. The other issue are those who are unemployed long-term, and by that we mean the proportion of the unemployed who are unemployed 6 months or longer and who are still looking for work. Okay? So this, again, the long-term story goes back to 2006. And before the 2008 recession, long-term unemployment was around 15% of all those who are unemployed. It spikes in around 2009, 2010, just a bit after when the recession hits. So it was around 24.5%, and took a really long time to decline, and only reached the level it was before COVID, around more than 10 years later. COVID hits, and around a year later, again, a very high spike in the long-term unemployment rate. but drops very quickly because COVID was not really a recession as much as it was businesses closing because of lockdowns, right? But I think you can see the pattern here has now returned, and we haven't had a recession yet. We will, but we haven't had it. And it's already, for 2025, it's already at 27.1%, about almost as high as it was right after COVID. So now youth and long-term unemployed, two populations who are really struggling for labor. The other item I want to mention is the participation rate. So the participation rate is everyone 15 years and older who is either employed or actively looking for work. So again, like with the unemployment rate, I've got 4 geographies: the Toronto Census Metropolitan Area, rest of Ontario, Barrie, and Muskoka Kawarthas. So I'm going to draw your attention first to Toronto and the rest of Ontario. So the red line and the orange line, the 2 lines in the middle. Between 2018 and 2025, there's a bit of variation. The participation rate dropped in 2020, again, because of COVID. People said, what's the point of looking for work? Everything shut down. But the odd thing is, there's been no change in the participation rate since 2018 to now. Now, that's kind of unusual because our population has been aging. And as we age, we enter into retirement. But the numbers haven't changed. Now, a couple of reasons for that. One is where our older population is healthier and is staying active longer, and that includes staying active in the labor market. Secondly, the cohort of women who joined the labor market later, like women's participation started increasing in the 60s. So now they're replacing that large number of women who had not been in the labor market. So that's they're reaching 60. They're also staying in the labor market. But the third thing is that with COVID and then the inflation that happened afterwards, people are staying in the workforce because their retirement funds are not adequate in their view. So there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. So the participation rate has been staying steady. But it is the case that in the Muskoka Kawarthas, that green line, that the participation rate has been declining. Now, the reason why that figure is much lower in Muskoka Kawarthas is because the population on average is older. So already you've got fewer people who are active in the labor market. And Barrie has a higher participation rate because many more young families living there. So even higher than that for the Toronto area, but their participation rate has gone down as well. And I guess I want to point out that the employment rate and the participation rate have a bit of connection. When the unemployment rate goes up, the participation rate goes down. Because people are saying, why am I looking for work when it's harder to find work? And so looking at both Barrie and Muskoka here, by and large, not necessarily exactly on each year, but certainly the following year, if the unemployment rate goes up, participation rate goes down. Okay, so it's kind of a common thing, and it's just something when this data is being presented to note, because there are correlations between these different pieces of labor market information. And that even applies when we look at it on a monthly basis. So even though I give the caution that the monthly data can sometimes be less reliable because of the sample size, still you can see when that blue bar goes up, which is the unemployment rate, the orange line, the participation rate goes down, and vice versa. Okay. StatsCan also collects job vacancy data. So this is done every 3 quarters. Well, it's done every month, but the solid data comes out every 3 quarters. So this looks at the job vacancy rates for all those regions we've been talking about: Kitchener, Waterloo, Barrie, Muskoka, Kawarthas, the Toronto region, rest of Ontario. Going back to 2019, the gap in 2020 is when StatsCan chose not to collect the data during COVID, right? Because no one was really hiring. A lot of places were closed. So we have no data at all for that period. But prior to COVID, you can see that essentially, again, the blue line has slightly more variation because it's a smaller geography. So there'll be more range in terms of the error. But overall, the vacancy rate was around 3% everywhere. Well, 3% of jobs were vacant. Right after COVID, as we remember, job vacancy rates really shot up, partly because there was a lot of dislocation that took place as a result of COVID. People were switching careers. Those who were in service sector jobs in particular were looking at other options because of this disruption in their fields. But since COVID, the vacancy rates have been falling, again, in tandem with the unemployment rates. And we're more or less back to the job vacancy rates that we experienced before COVID. What I've done with this slide is to pull out some sectors of occupations, categories. So the red line are health occupations. The orange line are sales and service occupations. And the green line are trades and transport and all the skilled trades and so on. Again, the same time period, and this is for Kitchener, Waterloo, Barrie. So right after COVID, that orange line especially has the highest rate of job vacancies because it's all this disruption happening. But you can see the slow increase in the red line. Those are the health occupations. And those really just continue to climb as we saw both more demand and more turnover in those jobs. All of these categories have come down, but the job vacancies for health occupations has continued to be relatively high in comparison to sales and to the trades. Now that's for Kitchener, Waterloo, Barrie. For Muskoka, the big increase was initially in the trades. So we're talking about occupations that are in construction and manufacturing. That really shot up, since came down. The red line is that slow increase in health occupations, which has stayed higher in the last year or two. Sales had also increased, but also declined. So roughly the same pattern, except that in Muskoka and Kawarthas, those trades and construction and manufacturing jobs increased more. And I mentioned that relationship between job vacancy rates and unemployment rate. You can imagine when the job vacancy rate is higher, there are more options for finding jobs, so the unemployment rate goes down. And when the unemployment rate goes up, when the job vacancy rate goes up, the unemployment goes down, job vacancy goes down, unemployment rate goes up. This slide I didn't show here, but this is only for Muskoka, Kawarthas. Okay, a couple of things about employment income. So this is from tax filer data. And so Statistics Canada collects this data, but it takes a while for it to be published. So we only have data for up to 2023. So this is the median employment income. So what that means is if you took everyone who'd filed their taxes, what was the person whose income was right in the middle in the middle of everyone's taxes that have been filed. So the person who's at the 50th percentile point. Okay? The red line shows Simcoe. The blue line shows Muskoka. So we're down to the actual regions here. And this is for males. So you can see, again, I want to give a trend over many years. So we're going back to 2017. You know, a nice, slow, steady increase, right? But the thing is, the data is reported in the dollar figure for that year. So the figure for 2017 is in the value of a 2017 dollar. The figure for 2023 is in the value of a 2023 dollar. Well, inflation makes a difference. So the dotted lines here show what happens if you express the figures in 2017 value. And you can see, particularly for males in Simcoe, there's actually been no change in their real purchasing power of their income. So you can, you're looking at your paycheck and the figure's going up, but you're looking at your grocery bill and it's not getting you anywhere. Now there was a slight increase for Muskoka males, but pretty marginal. And the figures for females on the same scale, really, now, we've got more, it's not holding for things like people who have part-time jobs and so on and so forth, but I think there's just no getting around the fact that women are hardly paid the same as males, regardless of all the kind of corrections you can make in terms of occupations and so on and so forth. It's a presentation in itself to kind of explain all that, but it's pretty apparent what the difference is between median incomes between males and females. Okay, migration. So again, the tax filer data compares where a person was in one tax year to the previous tax year. So we're able to actually learn a lot about how much movement is taking place between areas. So I'm going to start with Simcoe, and we're able to break it down by age, about what is the difference between people coming into Simcoe and people leaving Simcoe, okay? And in all age categories, there are more people coming into Simcoe than leaving. Okay, that's pretty clear. And as you can see, we've got around 7 comparison years. Like we have double years because we're comparing 2017 to 2016, 2018 to 2017, right? So here are the figures. So what you can see is that for Simcoe, the large population net immigration is among those who are 25 to 44 years old. So that's really prime working age population. And it also means that they're often families. So the figures for 0 to 17-year-olds is also, higher. What is interesting as well is that, these are in sequential year orders. So if you look at that 25 to 44-year-old figure, you can see like the second lowest row, it's kind of like a dark orange, is really increased. And I think that was part of that COVID impact. Remember what people were saying, that people are now, because you can do work remotely, you're moving out of Toronto and going to all these areas. Well, it did happen. And it really spiked in between 2021, 2022. It still stayed high and dropped a bit, but still stayed high in 22, 23. The same figures for Muskoka show a slightly different pattern historically, that Muskoka has more people who are 45 to 64-year-old coming into Muskoka, right? And we know this. And it is the case that many of them are actually coming to retire. But in that post-COVID period, you also see that spike among 25 to 44-year-olds. They were also going to Muskoka to do their remote work. And, but also it also increased among the 45 to 64-year-olds, it should be. So anyway, so that's kind of interesting. We can also look at where people were coming from. When we're just going to look at a couple of broad categories. So intra-provincial is people coming from other parts of Ontario. Inter-provincial are people coming from other parts of Canada apart from Ontario. And of course, internationals from outside the country. So this is for Simcoe. So number one, the largest number of migrants coming into Simcoe come from the rest of Ontario. But Simcoe actually, when it comes to movement between Simcoe and the rest of Canada, there's more people leaving Simcoe going to other parts of Canada than there are people coming from the rest of Canada to Simcoe. And slowly but surely, the number of internationals people coming from outside Canada into Simcoe has increased and really increased in 2022, 2023. And yes, this would include international students if they were working, right? So if they were filing taxes, this would show up. So it likely is the case because they probably would have, because they would have been here for a couple of years. They would be paying taxes. Muskoka has somewhat the same pattern, primarily from the rest of Ontario, net loss of population to other provinces, but a very, very small in terms of the number of people coming from outside Canada. Okay, now, Canadian business count. So this is essentially, you can almost say it's a census of the number of establishments. An establishment can be any number of employees, including 0 employees. Okay, so StatsCan every 6 months uses administrative data, HST data, and also some survey data, and produces figures about how many establishments there are in each area, including at the level of Simcoe and Muskoka. Now, I'm not going to ask you to read this, but I want to tell you how it is we approach this. We're able to break it down by number of employees and by industry. And each year in the local labor market plan, we produce a chart that shows what has been the difference in each cell that we illustrate here from the previous year. So a green means that it increased, red or orange means it decreased, where it's blank and 0 means there was no change in the number of establishments in that category. And you see we have these 4 employee size categories, and we have the total number of firms to provide a context in the last column. But and if you kind of just quickly eyeball it, you can see, like, if you look around a third of the way down at retail trade, you can see that retail trade in almost every category lost establishments, right? So you can kind of quickly look at it and say, oh, I could see that this area, like healthcare and social assistance, they largely increased categories. But the other important part of this is the literal bottom line, so the last row, which is the cumulative numbers for each category. So you can see, large increase among firms with 0 employees, so 2,000 something. Large increase among firms with 1 to 19 employees, but a decline in the number of firms with 20 to 99. And a small increase among firms with 100 or more employees. So we do the same thing with, not Simcoe, we do the same thing with Muskoka. First of all, there's many more zeros because there's smaller number of firms and not as much change. But and again, maybe just to point out, retail trade, significant losses in most categories. But when you look at it, take that bottom line over the course of many years, you have you can see kind of the trends. So in 2020, 2021, in both Simcoe and Muskoka, there were significant losses of establishments among firms with 20 to 99 employees and 100 or more employees. But since then, we've seen relative growth, consistent growth, but you can see sometimes pockets of decline among larger firms, which is a bit worrisome. And in Muskoka, if you take that column of 100 or more employees, and through all those years, the net change is zero. There's been the same number of increases, same number of decreases. So there's been no change in the number of larger employers in Muskoka. We're also able to take all these firms and compare trends by categories over time. So I created 3 categories. One are goods producing, so construction, manufacturing, agriculture, and so on. Then I'm going to mention first the knowledge sector. So knowledge sector are those industries where we have a higher proportion of jobs that require a post-secondary degree. So you can see educational services, finance, healthcare, and so on. And then the service sector is kind of the typical services that we're familiar with: accommodation and food, administrative support, arts, entertainment, and so on. Okay. And I create a baseline where I say, what were the number of firms in that each of those categories in 2018, in June of 2018, and I give it a value of 100, and then each subsequent year is expressed in terms of that 100. If it's 105, it means that figure went up by 5%. So you can compare different size numbers to each other. Okay? So what's the story here? So in Ontario, the bottom chart, we see the category that has grown proportionately the most has been the knowledge sector jobs in those establishments. There was a dip in 2020, 2021 because of COVID. There was a dip both in terms of the service jobs and in terms of the goods producing jobs. But they've recovered somewhat, but not nearly. They've increased by around 5%, and whereas in the knowledge sectors increased by around 15%. Both Simcoe and Muskoka actually have higher rates of growth in these categories. And so that's a good sign. And in Simcoe, it's the knowledge sector that has been growing more proportionately. I'm not saying it has the most number, but its growth rate has been greater. And the service sector has had the lower growth rate. In Muskoka, it's the goods producing sector that has had the greatest proportionate increase. And the knowledge sector has also been coming along. Service sector has lagged behind typically. All right. Okay, a few comments on the Employment Ontario client numbers. So again, I'm just showing the numbers here for 3 categories. Now, I'm not showing any numbers for employment services because it's not easy anymore to make a comparison over the course of a number of years because of the transition. Because we're not comparing the same category of clients. We had under the old system assisted clients, and now under the new system we have A category, B category, C category. And so we can't really make good comparisons because we're not always counting the same people. In the old system we had unassisted clients. I mean, I won't get into the technical part of this. The other problem is that the province has declined to release any outcome data, which is really, unfortunate is too light a word. Like no one knows how we're doing. And it just seems to be, and they won't even release it under freedom of information request. So that's really kind of worrisome. So I'm looking at 3 comparisons in the three other categories. So literacy and basic skills, I'm comparing the new in-person learners. Then under apprenticeship, I'm looking at new apprenticeship registrations as a indicator of how things are going. And then under Better Jobs Ontario, also the client numbers. Okay? And I have the data we have is for at the board level, so Simcoe Muskoka, at the region level, so it's central region, so it's Simcoe Muskoka and all the Toronto area boards, and then Ontario. And the only thing I want to point out here is just the relative size of these categories. So at the board level for new in-person learners in literacy and basic skills in 2024, 2025, we're talking about 1,400, 1,500 clients. It's just as a kind of scale. New apprenticeship registrations, you can see it's close to 1,000. So it's in the same range. And then the Better Jobs is a much smaller figure. It's around 144 for the last fiscal year. What I do want to show for each of these is what have been the trends in these categories over the years. So we're going to start with those literacy and basic skills in-person learners. And again, I'm comparing the board numbers going back around 6 or 7 years. That's the red line. The region numbers, the orange line, and the Ontario numbers, that's the green line. So number one, when you see figures go up and down in your area, understand that in fact, you're often following a trend that's apparent also at the region and in Ontario. The figures aren't all that different. There's small variations, but it's pretty much the same. Everyone had dropped in their number of clients, new clients, because of COVID. And then they slowly started recovering. But it took several years before they recovered to the level they were at before COVID. Right? And we're just kind of reaching that now. The board figures have been increasing more, so good for you. But the figures for the region in Ontario have been more tepid. And they're basically just about back to where they were before COVID. So that's literacy and basic skills, new in-person learners. Apprenticeship registrations, again, much the same pattern. Huge drop during COVID, slow recovery. The recovery the figures for new apprenticeship registrations doing much better at the regional level than at the board or Ontario. So at the board level, after a good recovery in 2022, 2023, it's kind of declined slightly. So that, I would say that's worrisome. I hope the, kind of skilled trades, fairs and so on are going to help in terms of stimulating more enrollment, because we, as always, we certainly need people in the skilled trades. And Simcoe and Muskoka have typically been strong in terms of the number of apprenticeship numbers they have. And they have more jobs in that category. And then finally, the Better Jobs Ontario figures started declining even before COVID. I understand that the funding did increase for some time, but really declined substantially, hit bottom during COVID. Interestingly, at the board level, the figures have increased quite a lot, but we're talking about very small numbers. Remember I said in 2024, 2025, there's only 144 clients. So, you go from 120 clients to 140 clients, and that's like a 20%, 15% increase. All right. The last thing, the one thing I will say about the employment services numbers are the differences in the categories of clients by source of income when you compare the old system and the new system. As we all know, the new system sought to, replaced employment services for Ontario Works and ODSP and rolled it into employment services, Employment Ontario, right? So one would expect to see a larger number of clients whose source of income is Ontario Works. So this compares, the ES is what we'll call the old system, and the IES is the integrated employment system, the new system. So anyone who was reporting under the old system is the blue column, and anyone who's reporting under the new system is the orange. And we have now 4 years. And you can see, let's just look at 2021, 2022. Under the old system, around 12% of the clients were OW. Under the new system, 36%. So a huge increase, it tripled. And it's kind of stayed at that level for the IES. What is interesting is under the old system, the number of OW clients also started increasing. It's almost as if the old system, those who were still under the old system were kind of starting to get themselves geared for transitioning. Because by 2024, 2025, they now have 26% of their clients who are OW clients. ODSP, not as much of a change, going from 4 to 8%, but has not increased. Actually, has gone down a little bit in terms of the share of clients. But we're talking about smaller proportions. Employment insurance clients in 2021, 2022, they were high in both systems, especially in the old system. But again, now it's because of COVID. We had far more people who were out of a job because of lockdowns and were qualified for EI. And so we're able then to go to employment services and say they were on EI. But that really declined after COVID. Okay, so that's not the case anymore. All right. Now, just finally, the last thing we wanted to share with you was the consultations with employers. So this included both an employer survey and some focus groups. So just a few highlights, and none, when I'm writing this, I think I could have written this like 5 years ago and we have the same responses. We typically hear very much the same thing from employers. One of the questions was a future-looking question over the next few years, what their plans were. So half felt that they will need skills upskilling programs for their current workforce. So, skills has been the topic for many years, but particularly now, obviously with the technological change in particular, it's become even a greater priority. 4 out of 10, when they're looking over the next few years, said they expect to be hiring new graduates. So that's good to hear. Certainly hearing for many years now, far greater challenges finding job candidates for mid-level skill and higher level or senior positions compared to entry-level jobs. It's only after COVID that the entry-level jobs were posed a huge challenge for employers, but that's less of a concern for them now as unemployment has gone up. Methods of recruitment for entry-level and mid-level occupations, far greater reliance on online postings and using competitive wages as a draw, as well as making clear what are opportunities for advancement. Whereas for senior level jobs, greater reliance on referrals, personal referrals, and using social media or a company's website. The recruitment challenges they were finding for entry-level jobs, that the person did not appear job ready, that they lacked the necessary experience, or they were not the right fit. For mid-level, lack of job candidates, lacked experience, the wage expectation. Senior level, lack of job candidates, lacked necessary experience, lacked job-related skills. Certainly the lacking necessary experience was common among all three, but then there are some slight variations between them. In the survey, we've asked now 5 times what the incidence of remote work is. So we have an ability to show over a long period of time what the trend has been. And during COVID, when we took the survey, at that time we asked them what was your experience before COVID? So we have a benchmark of the before COVID figure, and then during COVID, and then immediately after COVID. And then we asked again in 2022 and 2023 and in 2025. Right? So the way this chart is to be read is that the 0 to 20% means that that worker was spending 0 to 20% of their time working remote, working in the workplace. Sorry, no, let me take that back. I always have trouble explaining this one. That, yeah, 0 to 20% of their time is spent working remotely. That's right. Okay, so the blue line, so when we say that the 95% means that 95% of employers said that their workers were working 0 to 20% of the time remotely. Okay? So before COVID, almost no one was working remotely, right? We come to COVID, and that number really drops. It drops to 57% in Simcoe Muskoka. Whereas you go to the other extreme, 80 to 100% of your time working remotely. During COVID, more than a quarter of workers were working remotely. I'm going to say that in Simcoe Muskoka, your figures were low. Like we do this survey in the Toronto area, like with other boards, like I know with Peel Halton, and there more than half of the people were working remotely. It has to do with the mix of jobs, many more jobs that were computer facing in the GTA. But in any case, what is clear is that while we've returned to a higher level of many people working in the workplace, it's not at the level it was before COVID. And what I would call the hybrid work option of those spending 30 to 70% of their time working remotely, so that middle cluster has stayed pretty steady. You know, it's between 16, 13, 14%. So slightly more than 1 in 10 people in Simcoe Muskoka are working remotely. All right, so just kind of to review what we talked about. Annual unemployment rates have been going up. The proportion of long-term unemployed has increased significantly. Youth unemployment compared to adults has also increased over the last few years when we compared historically over a 20-year time frame. Annual participation rate has generally stayed steady, although in the Simcoe area and the Muskoka area, it appears to have declined slightly. Job vacancy rates are now down, and making the connections. When unemployment rate goes down even a little, the participation rate increases, so people are pulled into the labor market. And compared to Simcoe, Muskoka has lower participation rates, lower unemployment rates, and higher job vacancy rates. And that's partly to do with the fact that it's an older population. So you have a smaller workforce to draw upon, so you'll have higher job vacancy rates. And when you have higher job vacancy rates, that causes the unemployment rate to go down. Steady growth in the number of establishments in Simcoe and Muskoka, but there's been in the last year or two some decline among firms at the larger size. Knowledge sector categories growing faster in Simcoe, goods producing more in Muskoka. Median employment income has barely increased, has not increased for males in Simcoe, and has barely increased for other categories for males in Muskoka or for males and females in Muskoka. Net in-migration really increased in 2021-22. Simcoe more likely to draw in more people who are 25 to 44 years old. Muskoka more likely to draw in people who are 45 to 64 years old. Overall, the numbers have not been so bad, but there's certainly two categories I would call out as really being vulnerable, and that's youth and those who are long-term unemployed. So that covers it. That's it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So for the past year or so, I've been working on the Get Set program statistics report, and I finally have a copy in my hands, and I'm in love with it, and I think it looks beautiful, and I can't wait for you guys to read it and see it and enjoy it. So good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to share the key findings from the report. Get Set, formerly LBS, is an Employment Ontario program helping adults build essential skills to support goals such as employment, education, apprenticeship, and independence. This report analyzes Get Set client data from service providers across Simcoe and Muskoka, describing learner demographics, participation patterns, and trends to support planning, service delivery, and continuous improvement in the adult skills system. The main takeaway is that each delivery model serves a distinct learner profile and plays a complementary role within the broader adult education and employment readiness system. At a high level, the data shows both continuity and change. Participation patterns remain fairly stable overall, but we are also seeing important shifts in learner needs. In particular, the report points to rising newcomer participation, increasing signs of income insecurity, and a growing emphasis on independence-oriented learning goals and stronger demand for wraparound supports. Together, these trends suggest that the Get Set programs are responding to increasingly complex learner realities. One of the clearest findings is that the three program sectors, community-based, college, and school board, serve different learner groups. Community-based programs continue to serve a broad age range with a strong concentration of mid-career and older adults. College programs are increasingly attracting younger learners, especially those under 30, and remain closely tied to post-secondary and employment preparation pathways. School board programs continue to serve younger adult learners who are pursuing secondary level academic pathways, like secondary school credit. This tells us that the system is not duplicative. Each sector is filling a different role. The data also shows strong participation among equity-deserving groups across the region. Indigenous learners remain consistently represented across all sectors, with evidence of overrepresentation relative to regional population proportions. We'll also see growing participation among newcomers and racialized learners, especially in Simcoe County. This suggests that the adult education programming is serving an increasingly diverse learner population and that equity-focused access remains a central part of the Get Set system. Although the overall mandate is consistent across regions, local context clearly matters. In Muskoka, community-based programs show stronger alignment with independence-focused participation and higher reported rates of no income. This may reflect local labor market conditions, as well as the role of specialized programming, including correctional-based delivery. In Simcoe County, by contrast, we see a stronger growth in newcomer participation and higher representation of younger learners within college programming. That points to a regional pattern more closely tied to post-secondary transition and employment preparation for younger adults. Income source data reinforce the differences in learner profile across sectors. College programs serve the highest proportion of employed learners, suggesting stronger labor market attachment among participants. Community-based and school board programs, however, support a greater share of learners receiving government assistance or reporting no income. The increase in learners reporting no income, particularly in Muskoka community-based programming and within school boards, is an important signal of growing financial vulnerability. This underscores the need for flexible delivery models and strong referral relationships to support learners facing multiple barriers. GoalPath data reveal another important shift. Community-based programming has traditionally supported both employment and independence goals, but in 2024-25, independence emerged as the leading goal path, especially in Muskoka. This is significant because it suggests a growing demand for skills related to daily functioning, digital literacy, and personal autonomy. College programs continue to align strongly with post-secondary pathways, while school board programs remain focused on secondary credit attainment. At the same time, there are early signs of growing post-secondary interest among some school board learners, which may indicate an emerging transition opportunity. Referral patterns show that informal visibility remains very important. Word of mouth and media continue to be major pathways into Get Set programs, especially in community-based and college. At the same time, the report also points to improving system integration. Colleges have seen a significant increase in the number of referrals from other Get Set agencies over the last 3 years, which suggests stronger learner mobility and better coordination across the network. Outbound referrals also highlight the rising learner complexity, with growing referrals to health, counseling, and housing supports. In other words, learner success is increasingly tied to needs beyond academic upgrading alone. Exit outcomes show increased learner movement across all sectors in 2024-25, suggesting higher program throughout and more transitions through the system. However, outcomes are mixed. Community-based programs saw declining employment outcomes compared to the previous year, alongside increased exits to training and education. College programs continue to support learners balancing education and employment pathways, although exits to post-secondary have declined since 2022-23. School board programs show a strong alignment with diploma attainment outcomes and a substantial decline in unemployment at exit, which suggests improving transition outcomes in that sector. These immediate exit findings still provide a useful snapshot of current performance. For stakeholders, there are several practical implications. First, the data reinforce the value of maintaining distinct delivery models because each sector is reaching different learners and addressing different goals. Second, regional differences mean that planning should remain responsive to local context rather than assume a one-size-fits-all approach. Third, rising financial vulnerability and growing demand for independence-oriented learning point to the need for flexible programming and stronger wraparound supports. Finally, improving referral coordination is encouraging and should be continued to be strengthened, especially as learner needs become more complex. In closing, the Get Set data show a system that is stable in its core functions, but evolving in response to changing learner realities. The programs across community-based college and school board sectors are complementary, not overlapping, and together they form an important regional pathway for adult education, employment readiness, and personal independence. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions. Awesome. I love that.
Oh, there's a question?
Oh, yes. I have just this one physical copy that I will treasure, but it will be available on our website, I'm going to say tomorrow. But if you want a physical copy, I can make a note of it and print you one. Okay, thank you.
So Avery, can you please explain where the data comes from for this particular?
Absolutely. So the service providers, our lovely Get Set service providers, give us their client intake data from, it's called CAMS. And so we go in and in their intake interview, the learner is asked, what's your source of income? What's your educational background, your age, gender, that sort of thing. And that is all compiled and sent over to us where we organize the data and analyze it with the sector and region. Thanks. Anybody else? Awesome. Thank you.